If you are getting into fishing and you want to get the right fishing rods to catch more fish, but you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars of getting fishing rods, then the good news is I have just 3 fishing rods you need to catch the most amount of fish. And I'll share with you why all the other rods aren't really necessary. So let's get into it. So the first rod is likely going to be the first rod you either get in fishing or one that you already have in your arsenal, and that is going to be a spinning rod. This specific spinning rod we're going to talk about today is going to be a 7-foot medium power fast action. This setup specifically will allow you to do literally everything in fishing in general. We're going to talk mostly about bass fishing today, but you can catch everything from panfish to saltwater fish with this rod right here. However, for your bass fishing, this is going to excel in a lot of your finesse techniques, but it doesn't just stop there. I fish a lot of wacky rigs on my spinning rods. That's one of my favorites, all your Senkos and stuff like that. I also use a ton of Ned rigs or drop shots, those type of finesse baits. A lot of your smallmouth fishing is done with this setup, but also you can fish some reaction baits with this rod. Specifically like small little swim baits like this or any other techniques that you feel is a finesse technique is going to work very well on your spinning rod. Now we are going to go through the specs of the rods that I have here today, but if you just want to get this knowledge, pay attention to the specs that I'm talking about on the rod, because you either already have it in your assortment or you can purchase one of a different brand if you'd like that have the same specs and it will perform very similarly. If you want to check out any of the links, they will be in the description below for today's video, and it helps the channel out a ton using those links. This is the Cashin Icon Ned rig rod here. Like I said, it's that 7-foot medium power fast action. The medium power is going to give it a little bit of backbone back here to at least fight some fish if you need to, get a good hook set on some like weedless wacky rigs or stuff like that. But the fast tip is going to allow for some very accurate casts and to feel what your bait is doing. The next thing that I put on here is a Shimano Sedona. This is a 2500 size spinning reel. I highly recommend that if this is going to be your only spinning combo. 2500 is the size that I would go with. Like I said, you can catch anything with that. Walleye, trout, panfish, bass, all of it can be done with a 2500 size. And I will put 15-pound test lime green braid on here. You don't have to use lime green. You can use whatever color you like, but I would highly recommend using the braid because it allows you to feel your bait better down there on the bottom. It lasts longer than fluorocarbon or monofilament. It doesn't tangle as easy on your spinning rods. Overall, it's just going to perform a lot better. You're even going to get farther casting because the line diameter is thinner. So that's a key setup for me. Honestly, I could do 80% of my fishing with just a spinning rod right here, especially living in the Northeast. I do so much fishing with a spinning rod. There's a variety of techniques you can fish on here. Some of them are basically meant and best suited for a spinning rod. Others you can fish on a spinning rod and it would still work, like a jerkbait. I've done fishing with a jerkbait on a spinning rod many times. You can get a very accurate cast. You can throw 8-pound tests to get your jerkbait down a little bit deeper. There's a lot of things you can do to be creative with your spinning rod and catch a lot of fish. Now the second rod we're going to talk about is going to be a bait caster. And like the spinning rod, this is either going to be a rod you already have in your arsenal, or it would be the first bait caster you actually purchase. This bait caster is the Cashin Icon worm and jig rod, but more specifically, this is a 7-foot medium heavy fast action. So it's a little bit stiffer than that spinning rod. It's obviously built into a casting configuration, but it still has that fast tip. So it has a little bit more backbone to allow us to use some more techniques on here, use heavier line. If you're fishing for bass, a lot of times you're fishing around heavier cover, so you need some heavier gear to actually pull those fish away from the cover and not break off. So I have a Corrado MGL on here as my reel, and I spool this with 14-pound test is what I have on here. That would be what I would recommend if you were just getting this one set up. Put 14 or 15-pound test fluorocarbon on here. But you could put anything from 12 to 20-pound test fluorocarbon, or you could even use braid, like 30 to 50-pound braid on here to be able to do a wide variety of things. The reason I suggest the fluorocarbon is because it will give you the most amount of variety of baits that you can fish on here. So right now I have a Texas rigged worm. fish a ton of Texas rig baits with this. It gives you enough backbone to actually set the hook through that skin of the bait and get a good hook set. You can even fish jigs on this, whether it's a swim jig like this one, or you use this jig to actually flip and pitch into heavy cover. The biggest thing with a bait caster over a spinning rod is that it's going to give you more accuracy because you can control the line better. So a lot of pitching and flipping with jigs and Texas rigs is what I'll do with this setup as well. And then lastly, chatterbaits are an excellent one, or spinner baits. Those are two other baits that you can fish on this rod super effectively. So you can fish reaction baits as well as bottom baits with this one too. So between these two rods right here, you can do almost 95% of bass fishing. I mean, I could fish anything from pitching a jig into heavy cover and lily pads to drop shotting smallmouth in 30 foot on the Great Lakes in super clear water, and pretty much everything in between with these two setups. But there's one more that will round out your assortment and make sure you can do almost everything in bass fishing. Before we get into the last rod, only about 14% of you that watch these videos are subscribed. So if you could head down below and hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to reach the 100,000 subscriber mark this year. So if you could help me out with that goal, that would be greatly appreciated. Now for this last setup, I'm going to show another bait caster, but I'm going to leave an asterisk here. This is going to be what I recommend as my specialty setup in my assortment. If you wanted just one and didn't want to worry about specialty setups, this is going to be the one. But if you live in places like Florida where you know you're going to be flipping and pitching heavy cover and catching fish out of the densest cover, you might want to invest in a more flipping specific rod, like an actual 7'3" or 7'6" heavy action flipping rod. However, if you live up north or near Canada and fish like the St. Lawrence River every weekend, and you're fishing for smallmouth only, you might actually want to invest in a second spinning rod. That might be better for you in where you're fishing location-wise. However, for most people, and for me when I started pond fishing pretty much all the time, these would be the three setups that I would carry, and I found that these were the ones that helped me the most catch the most amount of fish. So let's jump into this one here that pairs with these ones to allow you to do everything, and that is going to be a Cast and Icon topwater and jerkbait rod. The reason I'm going to choose this one specifically is because it will allow me to do a wider range of treble hooked baits. You could get a crankbait rod in this place, but it's going to kill some of the action on like your actual topwaters and jerkbaits. So this rod here is a 7-foot extra fast action, medium power. You could go with a fast action as well if you can't find an extra fast. It actually would probably be better than the extra fast. But what this is going to do is have enough give in the backbone compared to the medium heavy that you can still fish treble hook baits on this rod. So right now I have a Shimano SLX DC on here and I have it spooled with 30-pound braid. I had just got back from Florida and I've been using topwater baits down there. So like a Rapala prop bait or just a regular popper or walking bait. You can fish that on this rod exceptionally well. It has the tip to perform, make that bait dart back and forth, and it has enough give in the backbone that these treble hooks aren't going to come undone when you hook a fish. However, the rest of the year, I will most likely spool this up with 12-pound test fluorocarbon, and it will allow me to do a ton of other techniques. I'm talking you can fish Senkos on this rod or flukes Texas rigged. I fish jerk baits on this rod for smallmouth all the time. The other thing you can do is even fish small crankbaits like shallow diving square bill crankbaits and other flat-sided crankbaits. They will actually work on this rod. Is it the perfect rod for it? No, but if you're only putting 3 in your arsenal, you can still fish a crankbait on this rod and you will land most of the fish you hook up with. And I've even fished small swim baits on this rod. I fish swim baits on this thing all the time for smallmouth. It's actually almost preferred over the spinning rod for me at this point because the fluorocarbon gets down deeper in the water. So you can fish bottom bouncing baits, top water baits, jerk baits, any treble hook bait. You can do a little bit of everything with this setup right here, and that will round out pretty much all of your assortment to cover top to bottom in the water column. No matter where you're fishing at in the country, you'll be able to catch fish with these 3 setups right here. While there are other rods that you can add to your assortment to help you catch even more fish, these 3 right here will get the job done in most places in the country, top to bottom, any type of bait you want to fish. If you want to learn all the baits you can fish with these rods to catch even more fish, check out this video right here and hit the subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching.